Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for a very special Digging Deep webinar. As many as you might know, we host monthly webinars relating to mental and emotional health topics for the parents and caregivers of teens and young adults. But for this month's webinar, we are talking about one of our ongoing projects we've been working on at Digging Deep. Let me give you a little background for our new viewers. A few years ago, the Digging Deep project developed a free mental health mobile game called Shadowsedge. We worked with over 500 young people and a team of mental health professionals to make sure our game was the best it could be, and so that young people could have a tool to help them out when life throws challenges their way. Since the game came out as a beta in 2017, we have continuously retested our game with young people as we add new features and as the mental health needs of today's youth changes. For today's webinar, we wanted to give a little bit of insight into how we work directly with young people to continue the development of our mental health app. This information will be great for any mental health professionals wanting to learn more about what goes into creating a mental health game for real-world youth with real-world challenges. This could also be for anyone interested in research aspects of game development, like college students looking to join the games for health industry. I am so excited to introduce our two guest experts joining us today, Kevyn Eva Norton, Head of Player Research for Shadowsedge, and Orlando Scoppetta, who's the project lead over at the nonprofit CINDE. So let's start with Kevyn. Kevyn, could you introduce yourself and also explain the role you play in developing the Shadowsedge game?
Yeah, thanks, Lacey. Thanks for setting this up. This is really fun to do, and I hope interesting for everyone. So my role is actually to make sure that we create the game around young people who will use it. So we call that user-centric design. And at the same time, I'm also the design lead for the game. So I actually make sure that the psychologists, the game designers, and the story writers, that they all have a common perspective on the game and develop something that makes sense from a psychology point of view and also from a gaming point of view.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I want to turn over to Orlando. Could you introduce yourself and what your role is at CINDE?
Thank you, Lacey. Hi, everyone. My name is Orlando Scoppetta. I am Colombia. I was born in a city in the Caribbean called Santa Marta. Although I live in Bogota, the capital of my country. I studied psychology, and then I studied 2 master's degrees, one in population studies, one in psychology, and then I got a doctorate in psychology. My current role at CINDE is the director of the project Empowering Colombian Adolescents and Youth in Soacha and Pereira to take charge of their emotional and mental well-being. I have been working with Kevyn since we designed the project and presented it to the Botnar Foundation for funding.
Thank you so much. And can you tell us more about the project Fondation Botnar and how this supports teens and young adults?
Yes, the idea of this project is to combine or to build a bridge between the some situations in Colombia that consist in I don't know, the expression of social determinants of mental health, especially poverty, violence, immigration, and bad immigration in bad conditions, and but also to consider that our adolescents and young people, they have in getting involved in social change in the country. They have a great viral energy, a great capacity to face very complex challenges in their life, and enormous ability to find paths in art, sports, and social connection. And even better if this comes hand in hand with technology. Our population faces many disadvantages: poverty, inequity, violence, uh, the absence of climate change, few opportunities for social advancement. And this is a little worse for the young population who have difficulties in studying and higher unemployment. But at the same time, they have this great uh, energy, this determination to find past change the situation. So having these both faces of the coin, we are trying to uh, to find a way where our adolescents and youth can express themselves and can uh, channel or use these channels that includes technology to to improve their ability to deal with mental health challenges. Considering that one important part of mental health is the ability to deal with the daily situation, the normal life situation, and even when they live extraordinary situations, but they have this resilience. But we think that we can help to improve this 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 power that they have, and giving them the opportunity to find their own ability to improve their ability, and this is that we are trying to do.
Thank you so much. And digging deep in Project Botnar and CINDE are pretty hand in hand in our mission. So thank you for expanding on that. And so for the past few months, shadowsedge and your project have been working closely together in the country of Colombia, specifically in the two cities of Soacha and Pereira. And I'm going to hand off to Kevyn, since she was the team member on the ground for this collaboration. And I would just love to hear about her experiences and why we went and all the other things that went into this. So Kevyn, could you expand on that?
Yeah, so why we did this project in the first place, there was a grant call from Fondation Botnar, which is a Swiss foundation, and they're all about using digital means to support youth education and youth health. And so it was lucky actually that we had a connection to Colombia through our big data research partner, who then actually introduced us to CINDE. So this is like that was a very rare opportunity to actually have, us from the game side with a big data partner in Colombia, plus CINDE as an organization that works with academia and youth. So for youth education, but also for does social projects like this one, all about empowering young people through education. And so when we came together, CIEN Plus, CINDE, and us to design this project, we were looking at, so how can we use technology to empower young people, and where would this be, where would it be easiest to work with young people? And CINDE actually suggested the cities of Soacha and Pereira, because there's a clear need there for, or that was the hypothesis that we had, that there's a clear need for mental health support, because there's not much access. So Orlando, what is the number of therapists in Soacha? There's like one psychiatrist for 1 million people or something like that. It's a very, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an extremely low number. And also mental health is a topic where actually one of the quotes that we have from the people that we worked with, they say, they call us the crystal generation, because actually when we bring up topics around our mental or emotional well-being, it's actually often said, you know, don't be so soft, get on with it. You know, life is hard, deal with it. And so there's a lot of ask actually to open up about things about emotional and mental well-being in the young generation. And so these two cities, Soacha and Pereira, with the challenges that Orlando mentioned, about Soacha being one of the fastest growing cities in Colombia because of a lot of internally displaced people. There's a big disparity between rich and poor. And it's a rough environment for these young people to grow up in, as well as Pereira also has its challenges in terms of poverty, but also displaced people, and also narco trafficking. So it's actually for you as a young person not to get recruited is, for example, one of the challenges that these young people are facing. And yeah, so that's why Soacha and Pereira. I don't know if Orlando, if you want to add something to that.
That this good picture, but maybe I can add that we have some figures that is historical figures in Soacha that get combined with the other that Kevin mentioned, can help to understand what is the situation there and why we choose that city. For instance, we have about 67% of population living in poverty in Soacha, and there is a situation, a sad situation, where when the Colombian army, the official Colombian army, took young and adolescents from Soacha and killed them in a to pass them off as dead in combat with the guerrillas. That created a crack, a situation between Soacha's society, and especially between Soacha's young people and the official statement in Colombia, the official institution. Because was a sad and a shame situation that the outcomes of this, the aftermath of this, still remain mentally of all of us of Colombia. Yes, and
so generational trauma is also contributing to a lot of the mental and emotional health challenges.
Yes, and but not only in relation to the mental health, but also they're reliable. The confidence from the citizens to the authorities, and but the young people in Soacha can I don't know overcome to solve this situation with pass of the time, and they are really, I don't know, able. They have the ability to work with the institutions and to overcome this situation, to get this situation behind, but still remaining in their memories that this kind of situation can never happen again.
Mm-hmm. And so when these workshops were happening, or I'm sorry, when we were in Soacha and Pereira, could you explain, Kevin, what we did there to kind of start this process of understanding how to talk to teens about these problems going on in their community, as well as what we did to open up those conversations?
Yeah, so the workshop series that we did with young people is we had a series of 3 workshops that different groups of youth organizations went through with us. And there were 3 key themes in those workshops. First one was to understand the mental health context. The second one was to get direct feedback on the game. And the third aspect was to co-create ideas for the next version of the game. And for the mental health part, what we did is our big data partner, CINDE+, they actually ran a study over 100,000 online conversations in Soacha and Pereira by young people, by a specific group of young people, which is the Venezuelan immigrants, because there's in Colombia at the moment, there's more than 2 million Venezuelan immigrants. So it's one of the largest displaced people population on the planet, actually. And then we also looked at what do parents say and what do parents look for online in the context of mental health. And so what we did is we wrote a very small summary of this study, and we presented that back to the young people to actually understand is what the online conversations show, which is there's difficult topics around stigma, around isolation, uncertainty, lack and loss. But there's also positive topics like a sense of, yes, even if I have a difficult situation, I have opportunity and I have support and I am capable. So a very strong sentiment also about that, yes, then I can be a meaningful part of society. So are these topics actually, do they resonate? And is it true that the negative topics are much more prevalent than the positive topics in these online conversations? Does that reflect reality? So that was a key part to actually understand the mental health context. And then for the game, we actually had them downloaded and play tested, and we just ran player observations. So sitting next to the player and just watching how they play and understand, get very direct feedback, which was very interesting also to see that the feedback from Colombian youth and the feedback from international youth that we've been giving is not that different. So the asks of a young person in Colombia and the asks of a young person in Europe or in the US to a game are actually quite similar. I found that was fascinating. And then the co-creation was more like we put on music and had they were creating drawings of elements, Colombian elements that they would like to see in the game. Also we did some to identify the topics, what to write about. We did some sessions where we asked them to talk more about what does uncertainty mean in your life? What situations do you encounter that describe where uncertainty is a topic? So we used the terms that we got back in the big data study to actually have them talk more about their reality, and because those will then flow into the writing prompts that we have in the game. But that's more like from the game design perspective. We had these questions: mental health context, feedback to the game, input to the game. But Orlando and his team, they actually led also a really important part, which is, so once we have the new version of the game, what actually to do with it, or how can something like this be useful for young people in Colombia? What else does it need? And there, I'd like to hand over to Orlando, who then facilitated a process around a participatory outcome mapping, where it's actually where the people that can support this initiative actually say how they could do it. Maybe Orlando, if you want to expand on the outcome mapping piece of the work that we did.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry, the mute microphone. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if my internet went out more than anything.
Yes. Kevin said, in general, our project is based on this methodology called output mapping, and which we developed the idea that they, the participants, have the power to change, and our role is how to achieve that change in the direction that they indicate. And in a recent meeting with the National Ministry of Health, they expressed that they consider that our methodology, that is not our, we are working on an adaptation, yeah, and that that is a powerful methodology, as a methodology to, I don't know, to have to hear the voices of people and try to understand their needs, and how to help people to change their own situation. Yeah. If we consider the nature and the how heavy are our social determinants of health, we have to understand that we cannot change that by ourselves. But people there living Soacha Hills or living in the Pereira neighborhood, they live their life amidst this situation. They have years experience and knowledge, and we have to respect that. We are only facilitators. We are only the bridge. We have some assets, some resources, but in the terms that they need. And in this case, we have a great tool that is the shadowsedge, and we give this asset, but they can transform this. They can change this this game as they want, and it's wonderful for me, for instance, only to see this this beautiful image of that Colombian girl with our traditional dress, with in our colorful environment. Yeah, and this is then the new face of shadowsedge. It's really
yeah,
beautiful.
Which actually Lacey created based on the input from one of the girls in a workshop in Soacha. She sent us the picture of that dress, and Lacey actually created the Colombian environment and hit it very well. No?
Thank you very much. I remember one of our participants in Soacha. Do you remember, Kevin, that she drew this dress?
Exactly. Yeah, and she also said how important it is for her to have some of the traditional elements of Colombia in the music, in the dress, and in the food. That was also interesting to see that what elements do you would make the city of Shadowsedge feel like home. It's actually food, clothing, and music. That's like interesting. But one thing maybe to add to the outcome mapping was the kind of organizations that participated. So there was the Ministry of Health in Pereira, for example, which has a really interesting project about training young people to be like mental health guards, so to be gestores de salud mental. So they get trained on basics of mental health and get trained in what kind of resources does the city in fact have, which Pereira has much more resources available than Soacha for mental health. And so they're training these young people to spread that knowledge. So to be aware of how do you recognize that someone's struggling with mental health, and what kind of resources can you make available. And so, for example, in this outcome mapping process, that topic was one of the inputs that the organizations that participated gave to say, okay, we can actually make this program available so that more people can get trained as mental health agents. And yeah, there were a lot of youth organizations and foundations that are already working with young people that are putting their platform out there to support the project. For example, one of the organizations is an organization that works with young people using theater and acting. And they actually want to create a play, for example, and show that play in various locations to then also promote the Colombian version of the game. And so the interesting, what I found really fascinating about this methodology of the outcome mapping is the organizations involved define what they want to achieve and also what they can contribute. And so what can they make, what kind of resources do they already have, what they can make use of also in this context. You're on mute.
I was just going to say that's very interesting to hear about those organizations, and I would like, do those usually go on in the schools, or is this usually something that happens after school? How are they getting these programs to the teens in these cities?
They're mainly working after school. So, which is interesting is that finding time with the youth was challenging because some of them already are working, some of them are in school, and some of them are unemployed. So that's like the I think the three main occupations that people had. But these foundations, they actually work with the young people outside of their school hours to support them to have meaningful things to do during that time. Because having young people in these vulnerable neighborhoods with too much time in the streets, that is a dangerous situation. And so these are private foundations that are stepping in to support maybe a gap also between education system and the entry into the job market. There's like that's a very difficult phase for a lot of young people. But maybe Orlando, you want to say more about that?
No, maybe I think that it's important to know that in this project we understand that what we call mental health is more than mental illness. This is an important message that we transmitted along this project, and it's being is well-being in the daily life and part of our role is to highlight this, is to show that mental health can be something that we deal with on a daily basis.
Like in a preventative way?
Sorry?
Like in a preventative way, like taking your vitamins instead of going to the hospital?
Yes, but it's beyond preventing illness. Is how to have a well-being sensation. Yeah, is that also the sensation of being self of getting some self-efficacy to solve, to deal with normal challenges, and but on the other hand, that there are institutional resources that exist, and young people, youth and adolescents in Soacha and Pereira, and in every place in Colombia, normally they don't know that these resources exist. Yeah. in terms of, for instance, telephone lines or community programs. Yes, and so our we are reinforcing this community knowledge, yeah, about mental health, the the personal conscious uh, about mental health, yeah, and how they can improve this basis, yeah, how they can reinforce this basis, and how they can help others, because they have this beautiful drive to this beautiful well to help others, yeah, to create networks, emotional relationships. But it's interesting that they express that it's normal that this feeling, or is common, this feeling of being isolated, and it's also surprising how uh, they are young people, and they are I don't know, supposed to be more communicative and free, expressing their sadness, for instance. But it's also common that they feel themselves like, I don't know, 10 people without the freedom of expression, isolated, stigmatized. Yes, and we are trying that they discover this 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 the terror factors. Yeah, and how to deal with that. But the first step is to recognize this, to discover this, and to change the situation for a stage where they can be free to express their mental health situation, express their frustration, sadness, or wherever, and they can find themselves as a resource, the primal source of solution of their situation, the powerful of the social of the national network, and also the the option to access to the services that uh, that exist, that are available, but they don't know.
Mhm. And I know it's been mentioned a few times through this recording that isolation was a challenge for a lot of the teens. Was that already a problem pre-COVID and it was worsened, or is this something that's relatively new for the community, this sense of isolation?
I would like
Orlando.
the opinion of Kevin, but this is a situation previous previous from the COVID, the pandemic situation, and lockdowns, and all of that was involved is involved, because we are in Colombia, we are going to the fourth peak pandemic, yeah, and
Like everywhere. Yeah.
like and unfortunately, and but this isolation and a stigma situation is coming before this, because there is a condition associated to I don't know, the social comprehension of adolescents. Yeah. In some places of the world, in Colombia, being an adolescent is a factor of social threat, of social, I don't know, discrimination, because adolescence is associated with misbehavior, I don't know, gangs, drugs, and other problems. But this is a social construction. This is not a natural condition. Yes. So and the kind of young people we are work with, they are their profile is people that suffer from poverty and lack of opportunities, social opportunities, education, occupation, and there is another charge of stigma. Yeah, and in Colombia, people is stigmatized for the place that they live in some place, so they have a charge of stigma. Yeah, related to the place that they live or was born, or and this is combined with the situation of being adolescent of the people. One of our I don't know participants told us that or expressed that, I don't know, undercover situation that they felt stigma when they the place that we're living. Yeah. and and but we have to recognize that the pandemic worsened that previous situation.
Has the topic around mental health become a little easier in the area since COVID? Because I know, at least in the States, since everybody's been struggling more, people are kind of like, hey, I need to talk about it. And it's actually gotten a little less stigmatized here. Has it kind of, not to say like, thank gosh for COVID, but more like, more of like, has there been a little bit of a positive aspect at all of like, maybe it's been easier for teens to talk about it now that this has become more obvious that this is a need?
What do you think, Kevin?
I from what I heard, it's still very tough in Colombia to be open about it, but there was a big difference between Soacha and Pereira. Whereas in Soacha, really the resources were minimal. In Pereira, there's really a Ministry of Health that is very active around the topic of mental health. So we were invited for Orlando to give a talk at a suicide prevention day that was organized by the city of Pereira. So there, I would say it's different depending on where you live.
And I guess like on how much people are talking about it, coming in and introducing it as a concept of, hey, this is something you got to take care of. Your mental health is important.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And yeah.
And so I would love to hear about, for anybody who's super into game dev on this, tuning in into this webinar, how is Shadowsedge and how is CINDE getting together with this data that they've collected and all of this information? What's the next step for this collaboration?
So there's two streams. Like one is the game design, and where we are involving. So tonight, for example, we have a first virtual session with young people in Soacha and Pereira, where we're going to talk about what are the next steps to create the new story of the game. So I mean, what's happening now is we're bringing together a psychologist that's reviewing the findings from the big data study with the game designers that are looking at, some of the things that are like very basic, which is the game was too big for many phones in Colombia. So we actually now reduced the game size 50%. So there's a few technical questions that actually the Colombia input makes us make technically a lighter, faster, nimbler game. But then also from the mechanics, it was really interesting to see through these player observation that there's just, from the user experience point of view, there's some improvements to make. And the key thing, though, that came out from the workshops in Colombia are the desire for story. So up to now, Shadowsedge was a game where the idea was that you who are writing are creating the story. So your own story is, so to speak, is a key part of the narrative in the game. Plus then the game is about a shattered city, and the shattered city, it's like your writing helps them bring the city back alive. So there's like this implicit story in there. But what players have been telling us in Colombia very strongly, and also in other countries, is that they would actually like to have a story where they influence the outcome also of what happens with the characters, where they can bond more with the characters, where there's a challenge, like there's an overarching plot that they uncover that's much more explicit than we have had it in the game so far. So for us, it's like the key work that's coming up is to work on the psychology, the story, and the user experience, and keep involving players in Colombia in this process. So we're going to have virtual sessions. We're going to see how that works. We have a Facebook group where we are publishing results, where we are building a community. We're seeing that it's much easier to interact, of course, when you're there in person, and now bringing that same sense of community into the virtual world. It's proving challenging. But of course, since we're about digital, and since our game also has a community element, it's actually a very good exercise to do this, to also strengthen the community aspect, the digital community aspect of the game. So that's from a game design perspective. It's psychology drives game mechanics, drives story. That's what we're working on at the moment. And we're releasing a first set of updates on December 7, and then we're releasing a next set of updates in January, and then a next set of updates in April to create the full release.
So there's a lot of back and forth between producing the things that the teens gave us feedback on, back to the teens getting feedback on what we made, and then back and forth. So it's not just hearing from them once and then going and making the game, for sure.
No, exactly. And then the local teams in Soacha and Pereira are also engaging youth on site with a series of mental health related sessions that maybe Orlando you can talk about more.
Yes, with respect to the project in general, we are going to do a second version of the big data study, but both cities. We are going to launch the adaptation of the game. Now we continue with activities in the two cities with the participation of adolescents and youth, and the institutions that include artistic, trade, educational activities and training, communication, and advocacy activities with specific plans for each city.
And I think actually the teams in Pereira, for example, they were going to work with young people around this theater that then they would produce and have like a road show around that to also promote the topic of mental health. And then there's in Soacha, for example, they will dive deeper. So in the workshops that we had with the young people, we always had an element also to experience techniques for your mental health. So most of the workshops, we actually started with a meditation or with some reflection exercises on the emotion wheel, for example. And so the Soacha team actually set up a series of workshops now to practice more of meditation, yoga and activities like this to actually just also give like the tools that the young people can use in their daily lives, in addition to the game, to actually to just support themselves and to support their well-being. We have in both cities, we're going to have teams working on creating music for the game, which was just beautiful to see how important music is in Colombia. I guess music is important all over the world, but it specifically was interesting to see when we asked, how would you like to contribute to the game? They actually said they want to write songs about mental health, and so we'll find a way to integrate a way to listen actually to these songs during gameplay probably via Spotify list. And so we have some composers that are now starting their work. Then we have some people drawing, and we have some people like just working with us really on giving feedback on the story, because we're going to have like an adversary in the game and an antagonist. And so shaping the character, for example, of this antagonist is going to be something where we can also co-create with the young people in Colombia.
That's so exciting. And I think my favorite part of this big collaboration that we've done is that we're not just going in and being like, hey, we're making you a game, or we're expanding this game for you. We're also going in and being like, okay, hey, here's some real world tools and coping strategies, and kind of helping set these people in the right direction to finding mental wellness in a place where that's not necessarily talked about. So that makes me happy to hear you talk about. And I was just curious, Orlando. So as someone who has a background in psychology, did you expect this much, like as someone who is not coming from the game side, did you expect it to be as involved with the psychology part, or were you expecting it, but was there anything surprising? I'm just asking this question for anybody who is watching that's, let's say, a psychologist, and they want to get involved in making psychology available through tech.
Yes, this is not. I have this kind of experience early my career as psychologist. Along my studies, I have several practices and in social I don't know, social settings, and we have this as a psychologist, this early experience with our social real situation, and but there is something that that I always I don't know, that always surprised me, and maybe it happens in many places in the world, but there are wonderful human beings wherever you look. Wonderful young people who are capable of learning, for instance, in our case, to play the cello on a hill where water does not reach, where hope barely reach. This is inspiring and connects me with the meaning of my work, of my life. So I am, and for instance, it's hard to see this situation, but at the end of the day, I'm grateful to have this opportunity to serve, to help it.
It sounds like this is like your life, like your sole purpose, like your heart drives you to do this, and it's so great to hear that from you.
Yes, always there is I don't know, in some term that transcendent goals. Yeah, transcendent aspiration.
And I would just like, for a final kind of last bit question, I would love to hear from both of you, going in, reading these data studies and, with the knowledge you had before of the areas, and especially Orlando, you live there, so you know the areas pretty well. But was there anything like when we went in and talked to the teens that like really stood out or surprised you? Like, was there anything that like made you go, oh, like that's really surprising?
What was really surprising to me, maybe in hindsight, not so surprising, but it was from the first day when we went to Soacha, which has its rough patch. Like Orlando says, not everywhere do you have water, not everywhere do you have light. It's very different. There's also people living very comfortably in Soacha. So I don't want to keep stigmatizing actually the city. It's like we saw very many faces of it. But one thing that stood out to me was from day one, there was actually one of the youth organization leaders showed us around one of the areas, more of the rougher areas. And there was this clear call to us to say, look, we are not victims here. We create our opportunities, and our job here is actually to support the young people to be able to seize these opportunities and create these opportunities better. But it's like that was a theme that with a certain, with a lot of like nearly stoicism, that also these young people were very much like just very much there saying, look, we are shaping our lives. We are like, also in the written feedback we got, like, yes, sometimes it really sucks. Like life is tough, and opportunities it feels as if there's none. And if you look at actually the chance to get employment, depending on where you come from, it's really tough. And at the same time, it's this strong, nearly stubborn energy saying, and I am going to find my way. And that did surprise me, this resilience and this fierceness to want to be the creator of your life. And I have to say, I found that very inspiring. Yeah, it's like, and just the music and the community that was there, coming back to that, it's like the first workshop was like the teens actually wanted to open it with a singer, a guitar player, and a cello player.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
It was just beautiful. And so music, community, to support each other, very much there. That surprised me and made me very happy.
Thank you so much, and that was wonderful. And thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. Did anybody have any final thoughts or things to pose for the audience? Otherwise, any questions that the audience has for us, they can always shoot us an email to feedback@shadowsedge.com. But did either of you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, maybe this.
No.
Orlando, please, you go.
Thank you, Kevin. No, just to say thank you very much for this time, for this webinar. Thank you for the support and the Digging Deep community initiative and the Shadowsedge, and we really appreciate that you have this I don't know, this this support to this project that we the opportunity to work together, and the opportunity also to solve situations that happened, and that we have to solve and to work together and to learn together. In this project, we are not just I don't know, addressing the the situation of others. We are also learning about ourselves and learning how to to I don't know to become to be a better human beings. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Lacey.
Thanks, Orlando.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe from my side, if there's people who are interested, of course, in our methodology on how we work to bring psychology and gaming together, just reach out. And also, we are going to have a series of play tests that we're mainly designing now with the Colombian youth, because it's a release for Colombia. But actually, the big learning for us was our assumption was we would create like an add-on, a Colombian add-on to the game. But the feedback that we got was so valuable that we actually decided to do a major story overhaul of the game, which will be made available to players globally. And so if psychologists or young people want to participate in this process, there will be many occasions over the coming month to actually be a part of this.
Again, if anyone in our audience has questions, when watching this recording, feel free to email us at feedback@shadowsedge.com, or if you want to get involved in this next part of beta testing and a part of this project, you can email that same email as well to find more on how you can get involved in it. And thank you so much and have a wonderful day.